lesson, we're going to take a look at a new type of variable called the Boolean. Up till now, we've mostly used three different types of variables. We've used the int for integers, numbers without decimal points. We've used the double for variables that might also include decimal points. And we've used the string to store a string of characters. A string of letters or numbers all joined together to make words or sentences. Uh, the new type that we're going to talk about today, Boolean, it can only have two values. It can have the value of true or the value of false. And the computer, we can use a Boolean to help it make decisions on what to do in a program. So, for example, if you were creating an app for your phone and you wanted to know whether they clicked on a certain box, if they click on it, it might change something to true. If they click somewhere else, it might send a signal of false to that app. So we're going to use a lot of the same things that we use in math when we're comparing things. So the less than symbol we're going to use to compare if the thing on the left is less than the thing on the right. So for example, if we know x equals 3 and that y equals 97, is x less than 10? Yes, it is. So that would be a true statement. Y equals 97, also true. What about y equals 3? No, of course not. That's false because we said y was 97. We can also combine those together with ands or with ors. And sometimes we call that anding or or-ing. So is x less than 10? Yes, it is. Is y equal to 97? Yes, it is. So this whole thing would be true. What about this one? Is x less than 10? Yes, it is. Is y equal to -3? No, it's not. So is this true and this also true? No, which means this is a false statement. How about these two? When you use or, one half or the other half or both have to be true, and then the whole thing would be true. So is this a true statement? Yes, is less than 10, so the whole statement's true. You could also say y equals 97, so the whole statement is true. How about this one? X is less than 10, but y is not -3. Is this a true statement? It is, because for this to be true, one half or the other half, or both, have to be true. So this is a true statement. All right, a couple things that are different. Up till now, we've been using the single equal sign to assign a value to something. So for example, y equals 97 would say store the value 97 in the variable y. So how do I check to see if they're equal? Well, in Java, we're going to use two equal signs next to each other, no space between them. So if it says y equal sign 97, that's checking, not making it equal, but checking to see if it's equal. So this would be true if y equaled 97. It would be false if y did not equal 97. We can also do the opposite of that. The exclamation point is used to do not, or the opposite of. So this would be read y is not equal to 97. In this case, since y is 97, this would be a false statement because it's false to say that y is not equal to 97. And those double negatives can get a little bit confusing in Java, right? Also, we don't use the word and or to combine things together in Java. We use a double ampersand to say and we use two pipes. These straight up and down pipes or lines are called pipes, and they mean or. The pipe is right above the backslash on your character. It's shift backslash. It's right above the return or the enter key on your keyboard. When we're combining together these things, sometimes it's useful to understand how a truth table works. So a truth table, if we know that A and B are two different statements that can be true or false, we want to figure out what happens when we combine them together. So if A is false, and you and them and you combine them together and B is false, the entire statement is false. If A is false but B is true, well, and requires them both to be true, so the whole statement is again false. The other way around, A true and B false, also false. The only way this can be true is if A is true and B is also true. That will result in a true statement. Notice that there are three false and one true when you do an and. Three ways to end up with false, only one way to end up true. Similarly, if you or things together, it's a lot easier for an or statement to be true because only one half or the other half has to be true. If they're both false, the entire statement is false. But if one half is true, it's true. If the other half is true, it's true. If they're both true, an or statement is also true. So that's how you would look at truth tables. So let's take a look at a couple examples or a couple other ways to do things. If you do system.out.println and you put in something inside the parentheses, it will evaluate and figure out what that thing is. So let's do a couple examples over in Eclipse. I've created a new class called Lesson 8. And again, this is from Blue Pelican Java that we've been using. So let's create a main inside here, and then let's run a couple lessons. So I have the structure for a main over in this other file. And I can put that last statement that we saw, system.out.println. Well, let's just start out with true and find out what it does. If I system.out.print and I run it, it says true. And if I say false and run that, it will say false. Now, is it just repeating the word that's here? No, it's evaluating what false means and printing what it means. So I could also put a statement like 1 equals 1. I know that's true. System.out.println 1 equals 1. It's going to say true. Or if I say 1 equals 2, we know that's false. It prints false down in the console. So a couple other things that not, right? So if we do the exclamation point and true, what will that print? Well, this is going to do the opposite of whatever this is. So if I run it, not true means false, right? A couple other ways that we can use this, we could say 1 not equal to 1. Is that true or false? 1 equals 1. It's not true that it's not equal. So we can run it. That's false. Another way to do that, to turn something the opposite, would be to put this in its own set of parentheses and then put an exclamation point out there. 1 is equal to 1, but this is going to change it to the opposite. And it doesn't like the way I'm doing that. Because I am missing an extra set of parentheses out here. Let's try that. Yes, this was a true statement. This turned it to false. 1 equals 2 is a false statement. The exclamation point changed it to the opposite. We could also try other things. 1 is less than 2. This exclamation point will change it to false. Now those are things that we know about. Normally we would be doing this with some variables. So for example, if I had int a equals 1 and b equals 2, I could say is 1 less than, or is a less than b? Let's get rid of that. Not. Is a less than b? It is. This is true. Is A bigger than B? No, it's not. Um, is A bigger than A? No, it's not. What if we want to check if things are greater than or equal? We don't use the greater than or equal symbol. We just put a greater than and then an equal after it. That's true. Is A less than or equal to A? Yes, it is. Be careful to make sure it's less than or equal to. If you do equals and then the less than, you'll get an error message because it doesn't understand how to do that. All right, so um, what's this going to do? True and true. And the answers are over here, but an and requires both halves to be true. So a true and false will be false. What about a true and a not false? Let's just double check that one. Any clips? True and not false is true. True is true, not false is true. Both parts are true. Let's see, they have some other examples up here that we can paste in. And let's take a look at this one. Let's try to figure out what we think will happen, and then we'll print it out, we'll run it and find out, and make sure that we make those two pipes next to each other. So C is false, or D is more than 0. D equals 13.89, so D is more than 0. This part is false, this part is true, so the result should be true, and they are. So you can try each of these different things if you want to copy them in here. Not B, well, B is true, so not B is false, or C, which is false. Those are both false, so the or of them is also false. So that's how you're going to compare those, combine them together. Let's do one more because sometimes you can have multiple negations or multiple nots. So true, not true would make it false. Not true would make it back to true again. Let's find out. And it is true. Right. The other thing that's important to learn about at this point is operator precedence. And this is similar to PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. When you look at these things, you have to know what it's going to evaluate first. So first, it's always going to do the not or the negation. Then it's going to check to see if two things are equal. Then it's going to look for any not equals. Then it's going to and things. And then it's going to or things. So here's an example. Let's figure out what this statement is going to be. So we know that true is true. We know that false is false, and we know that false is false. So what will it do first? If it does this first, true or false is going to be true, and then it would say true and false. Well, true and false is false. So that would make the entire statement false. If it does this part first, false and false is false. True or false with an or is true. So if it did this part first, we'd end up with a true for the entire statement. If it for a false for the entire statement. If it does this first, we'll end up with a true for the entire statement. Let's find out what happens. It's true. Why? Because first it does the and, it combines these together, decides this statement is false, then it checks for the or, true or false is going to end up true. So that order that you do things is really important. If you are coding, a really good idea is to put that precedence in, even though it's not required. It would be easier to understand if we put an extra set of parentheses in here, that it's definitely going to do what's inside these parentheses before it checks the OR. Right? If we wanted to check the OR first, we would have to put the parentheses in over here and make sure that it did the OR first and then it did the AND. That will end up false. How about this one? This one is usually what people would expect because when you read from left to right, you think it's going to do the first thing. In this case, and is first, so it will do the first part first. True and false is false. This part's false. That's false. The entire answer is false. Right. So in today's lesson, you're going to be checking on some truth tables. You're going to be combining some things together. You're going to be using the not, the double equal sign, the double ampersand, and the double pipe. So make sure that you start out by creating a new class, call it lesson08.java, and then uh, put these things in at the top inside your main and think about what you think these things will be. If it prints this out, what's it going to print? Type your answer in here, make your first guess, and then if you want to go over to Eclipse, run it, find out whether you were correct or not.